Hello and welcome to Idea TV News Updates. I'm Paul Oladgupo. We begin with the headlines. Mali introduces visa-bound requirements for U.S. citizens in replica move. Patrick Herminie wins Seychelles presidency with 52.7 votes. AfCFTA records first trade shipment, but full implementation remains slow. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, House of Rep calls for full energy reform as ABBAS declares Petroleum Week open. Now, moving away from Africa, Trump expresses desire for peace deal with Iran after military strikes. And in health, NARD, Nursing Council, urges hospitals to treat gunshot victims without police reports. And in business, federal government to disburse 6.3 billion naira interest-free loans to 21,000 flood victims. And in sports, VALUEJET allies fears after Super Eagles mid-air scare. And now to the news in full. Mali has announced that it will now require U.S. citizens to pay a visa bound of $5,000 or $10,000 when applying for entry into their country. The decision mirrors new American visa conditions targeting Malian applicants under a pilot program set to begin later this month. According to the Malian government, the U.S. measures violates a 2005 bilateral visa agreement that allows for multiple entry long-term visas between both nations. In a statement issued on Sunday, October 12, Mali's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation said the move is a reciprocal move response aimed at upholding the principles of diplomatic equality. The ministry added that Bamako remains committed to maintaining fruitful cooperation with the U.S. within the framework of the dialogue and mutual respect. Moving on. Opposition leader Patrick Herminie has been elected as the new president of Seychelles after defeating incumbent Wavel Ramakalawan in a tight contest runoff election. The country's electoral commission announced on Sunday that Herminie, representing the United Seychelles Party, secured 52.7% of votes against his opposition, who earned 47.3% of the votes, marking the return of his party to power after several years in opposition. In his victory message, he pledged to stabilize the economy, lower living costs, and rebuild public trust within his first 100 days in office. This victory is not that of a single party, but a call to serve, to act, and to restore dignity and hope for the country. His party said in a statement, the 63-year-old former Speaker of the National Assembly has previously faced political charge witchcraft allegations in 2023, which were dropped a year later. The election took place amid sluggish economic growth and dependence on tourism, with GDP expansion slowing to 2.9 in 2024, according to IMF. Analysts say that this new government faced tough challenges, including inflation, rising living costs, and youth unemployment. However, the IMF projects a modest rebound of 3.2% growth in 2025, driven by a gradual tourism recovery and improved fiscal management. Still in Africa, trade activities under the African Continental Free Trade Area are beginning to take shape as several countries, including Ethiopia, announced their first commercial shipment within the framework. Ethiopia recently exported meat, fruits, and other agricultural products to Somalia, Kenya, and South Africa, marking its formal entry into provincial inter-Africa trade. The milestone follows moves by Namibia and Tanzania under the Guided Trade Initiative (GTI), which served as a pilot for traffic and custom integration ahead of the full implementation of AfCFTA. According to the Africa Export and Import Bank, the GTI expanded to 38 member states by the end of 2024, with 37 finalizing their tariff schedule and upgrading custom systems. Most Union countries, 54 out of most African Union countries, 54 out of 55, have now signed the AfCFTA agreement, while 47 have ratified it. The AfCFTA Secretariat has also introduced revised protocols on digital trade, investment and competition, as well as updating tools such as the e-tariff book and the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System PASA to simplify trade. Moving on, the House of Rep has reconfirmed its commitment to comprehensive reforms of Nigeria's energy sector, urging the federal government and key stakeholders to revamp the downstream petroleum industry for greater efficiency. Speaking at the first annual Downstream Petroleum Week in Abuja, Speaker Tajuddin Abbas described the sector as the central of the country's economic transformation and called for decisive action to strengthen local refinery capacity and ensure energy security. The event, organized in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources and Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, brought together policymakers, regulators, and industry players, including representatives of NNPCL and the Dangote Group. Abbas said that the House would continue to provide strong legislative backing to drive the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act (PIA), address pipeline insecurities, stabilize pricing, and encourage investment in LPG and CNG structures. Chairman of the House Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream highlighted recent progress in the sector, citing major projects such as the Dangote Refinery, Walter Smith's Modular Refinery, and the petrochemical expansion. He urged cooperation among stakeholders, especially labor unions, to sustain investors' confidence and avoid disruption that could stall reform efforts. Moving on, away from Africa now, U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed his willingness to reach a peace agreement with Iran months after the United States and Israel carried out a joint strike on the Islamic Republic nuclear facility earlier this year. Speaking before Israeli parliament, Trump said it would be great to make peace with Iran, describing it as a move to stabilize the Middle East. He added that Washington was ready to dialogue whenever Tehran was willing to engage. Trump reiterated his decision to withdraw from the 2015 Iran nuclear deal brokered under former U.S. President Barack Obama, saying he was proud to have ended the agreement. Despite past tension, the U.S. leader extended an olive branch, stating that both the U.S. and Israel bear no hostility towards the Iranian people, but only seek peaceful coexistence. The remark comes years after a strained relationship between Washington and Iran, compounded by Iran's support for Hamas and other militant groups. Trump emphasized that the hand of friendship and cooperation remains open to Iran, signaling a potential diplomatic shift following months of heightened regional conflicts. We're going to quick break now. Once we return, we'll continue with the news. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is still Idea TV News Updates, and now to the rest of the news. In health, the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors and the Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria, NMCN, have called on hospitals across the country to treat gunshot victims immediately without demanding police reports. The demand follows repeated cases of neglect and delay in treatment of such victims, which both organizations say violates the Compulsory Treatment and Care for Victims of Gunshot Wound Act of 2017. The law mandates all hospitals, public or private, to provide prompt medical attention to gunshot victims before any police documentation. Speaking in Abuja, the president of the NARD, Dr. Mohammed Suleiman, described the continued refusal of care as unacceptable and unethical, warning that any omission leading to death could attract up to 5 years in imprisonment or a 500,000 naira fine. He explained that doctors are regularly trained on legal obligations and emergency protocols, stressing that saving lives must take preeminence over administrative concerns. where I practiced, we first treat, the police handles the process later. Our role as doctors is to save lives and not to judge, he stated. Also at the event, the registrar of the NMCN, Mr. Alassane, echoed similar sentiments, noting that some nurses act under restrictive hospital policies that contradict federal directives. He urged healthcare professionals to prioritize patient survival, saying that documentation can only follow after stabilization. In life-threatening situations, saving lives of the patient comes first. That is both ethical and lawful, he stated. Both bodies urge citizens to report any case of neglect, reaffirming that rejecting gunshot victims remain a criminal and disciplinary offense under the Nigerian law. Moving on now to business, the federal government has announced plans to disburse about 6 billion naira in free interest collateral-free loans to 21,000 Nigerians affected by recent flood disaster across the country. The Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Dr. Yusuf, disclosed this in Abuja during a roundtable to mark the International Day of Disaster Risk Reduction. He explained that each beneficiary would receive 300,000 naira, with the initiative aimed at helping flood victims recover and boosting national food security. So Nono noted that the intervention aligns with the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, highlighting that over 8.1 million households have already benefited from the government's conditional cash transfer scheme worth more than 300 billion naira. He unveiled a new empowerment plan for internally displaced person IDPs under the government, which purchased 70% of their agricultural produce, while other participants retain their 30%, ensuring both financial and market access. Moving on. And finally now to the news on sports. VALUEJET Airlines have reassured the public of the safety and reliability of its operation after a mid-air technical scare involving the Super Eagles on their return flight from South Africa on Saturday night. The airline confirmed that the team and officials arrived safely in Uyo ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Benin Republic on Tuesday. According to VALUEJET, the aircraft developed a minor technical issue about 15 minutes into the journey, prompting them to return to Angola as a precaution. In a statement, the airline said it immediately activated its contingency plan, dispatching a replacement air flight to continue the journey. In the statement, they said VALUEJET remains steadfast in the commitment of safety, reliability, and excellence, and we are proud to stand with Super Eagles as they continue their quest for World Cup qualification. The confirmation came after the Nigerian Football Federation (NFF) reported that a loud crack has appeared on the aircraft's windscreen, forcing the pilots to make an emergency U-turn. Team officials and players safely disembarked in Angola, while arrangements were made for replacement flights, which eventually landed at Victor Atta International Airport, Uyo, at 8:05 a.m. on Sunday morning. The airline is the official flight partner of the Super Eagles and expressed appreciation to the federal government and aviation authorities for their swift assistance. Meanwhile, the team has resumed preparation for their crucial qualifier against Benin Republic at the Godswill Akpabio International Stadium. And that's all we have for you on Idea TV news updates. But before we go, here's a recap of the headlines. Mali introduces visa-bound requirements for U.S. citizens in reciprocal move. Patrick Herminie wins Seychelles presidency with 52.7% of votes. AfCFTA records first trade shipments, but full implementation remains slow. Still in Nigeria, House of Rep calls for full energy reform as ABBAS declares petroleum week open. Moving away from Africa, Trump expresses desire for peace deal with Iran after military strikes. And in health, NARD, Nursing Council, urges hospitals to treat gunshot wound victims without police report. And in business, federal government to disburse 6.3 billion naira interest-free loans to 21,000 flood victims. And in sport, VALUEJET allies fears after Super Eagles mid-air scare. Do not forget to follow us across all social media platforms at Idea Television. I am Paul Oladipo. Thanks for watching.